Hello, hello, hello. You are listening to the DIY Marketing School podcast. I'm your host and your marketing coach, Melanie Diane Howe. And today we're going to talk about what it means to be social on social media. Well, hello, my friends. Today we are going to talk about what it means to be social on social media. Which it sounds a little meta, but it's important because we are on social media for a reason. And I want you to make sure that you are kind of just being a good steward and being a good social person when you're using social media, especially for business. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, I got to say, if I sound a little bit off, it's because I have been trying to get over this crazy fall, summer, late summer, fall, cold at the time of this recording. I have got this thing going on, so bear with me for sure. But we're going to get through it because the show must go on, right? Okay, so what does it mean to be social? So where I'm getting inspiration for this episode is, I've even fallen into this trap before, but I do think that sometimes we forget that there's supposed to be two-way communication. And I think that I see a lot of businesses and people, they make posts, on social media, but they're not really actually being social. And so what does it mean to be social? It really means that you are fostering relationships. You're developing relationships and community using these social media tools. And you're not just talking all the time, but you're also listening and responding to people, whether they ask you a question or just talk to you in comments or direct messages or whatnot. But also you're a part of the conversation, not on your page. And so let's talk first about this. So we obviously make posts, as if you're in business or a professional, you're going to be creating posts, you're going to be doing live videos. I hope. If you haven't caught on yet, I want you doing live video. If you haven't yet, I want you doing it. So, regardless of the content, you are going to be creating content. You're creating valuable, helpful content on your pages. And people are going to comment on these posts. And so I want you to be ready and available to respond to those comments. So don't just post it and then forget about it. Make sure you're monitoring, and if somebody comments on it, then respond to that person, whether they give you a thumbs up or a high five, in their remarks, or whether they ask a question. Make sure that you're not leaving them hanging. Now, this is really important on your regular post, but it's also important if you're doing any kind of advertising, any ads out there. People can comment on ads. And I think that it's one of the easiest areas for you to miss or to not have easy access to seeing those notifications when people are commenting on your ads. I know for certain that there's been times when, I've commented on somebody who has done an ad. They're either repurposing a video and they've boosted it, and I comment on it and they never answer my question. And it's kind of like, okay, you just want my money. You just want me to opt into your webinar or your free sale or not free sale, your sale or whatever. And it just doesn't make me feel very warm and fuzzy as a customer or potential customer. So make sure that you are, available, making sure that you're available to respond to these comments, engage back with people as they're commenting on your stuff. Now, if you have just tons and tons and tons of comments and tons and tons and tons of direct messages coming your way, you may not be able to get to every single one. But, if you're one of those high volume people, like you have just a lot of likes, a lot of followers, lots of comments, most people are going to see that and they're going to realize, most people are pretty reasonable and know that you probably don't have the time, just like fan mail. Back when people used to literally send letters in the mail to celebrities, they can't send a handwritten letter back to everybody, but they have a team that maybe can help. So you might have a team that can help you. But for the most part, I don't think that every single person is going to expect to get a response from you if you are one of those super high volume people. But hopefully you can find a way to get in there, respond to as many that you can yourself. It really will go a long way for you, and it will create a lot of authenticity, and you're really going to connect even deeper with your audience. But worst case, then, make sure you have some team members that are able to help you monitor that stuff and to respond. So the first, tip here is just make sure you're available and ready to respond to these comments and direct messages, especially direct messages, either you or your support team. Make sure you have a system set up so that you can do that. The other thing I want to say is, don't just go post stuff when you have something to brag about. Make sure that you're offering value all the time. That is definitely part of being social. Ask questions, get to know your audience, use your social media to get to know people. So ask questions and let them know you care. So, get to know them better and have a listening, I want to say listening ear, but really it's more a listening eye, because these people are going to be commenting and you're going to be reading them. But, another thing too, a way to be social is to create social conversation. And when you're just tooting your own horn all the time, that's not really, fostering a conversation. That's not creating a conversation. You're not going to walk into a coffee shop and just start showing off and sharing, flexing your muscles and talking about how great you are. You're going to ask people how they've been doing. Oh, nice to meet you. What is it you do? So, or how have you been lately? Okay, cool. Tell me about your business. How's it going? I mean, you're going to create conversation. So you want to do the exact same thing on your social media. So in your comments or your post text, you want to make sure that the language you're using is fostering that. You're creating a post that allows for someone, it gives them a prompt to respond or to tell you something, and then use that information for your benefit. Get to know your audience. Let them know you care. And again, you want to respond to those comments when you prompt that type of conversation. Another thing that I want you to consider is if you're involved in Facebook groups. So these could be user communities. So like if you're a user of a particular software or app and you're in a user community or a learning community, or just a community of common interest, there's all kinds of different Facebook groups out there that have different objectives. But here's what I want you to do, especially if you're in a learning community. Don't just be in there and do all the taking. I want you to be a part of the conversation. So if somebody asks a question and you're able to answer that question, or you have knowledge or experience and you can provide value, you should be doing that. You should be looking for those opportunities to provide value. I'm going to take a little sip here. And no, I'm not editing that out because we're just going to get this bad boy done, right? So here's what I want you to do and want you to think about. Every once in a while, I want you to make sure that when you're in these groups, you're going in there and you're looking for what everybody else is asking and how can you maybe be a part of that and how can you help? Because you're going to find that when you show up for other people in the comments of their posts, whether it be answering a question or sharing encouragement, maybe they're sharing a win or sharing something that they did. And you by taking the time to comment on that, when it's time for you to ask a question or when you have a need and you all of a sudden here you are posting, you're going to have people that know who you are. You're already going to be developing these virtual relationships with people. And I know that might sound weird when you're like, but they're not real friendships, or these aren't real people that I know. Well, they can be. And there is such a thing as a virtual relationship. It's kind of like a modern day pen pal, to be honest with you. And so when you are more active in the groups outside of your own needs, then what you're going to find is that when you do need something, that community is going to show up for you. Now, if you just are lurking all the time and you're never helping people, and the only time you ever visit that group or post in that group is when you need something or when you want to show off and you never contribute to anything else, you're going to find that one, you're not going to be known, so people are probably going to be less likely to engage with you. And two, the algorithm is not going to work in your favor. Once again, there's that sneaky algorithm again. The more engaged you are and the more engaged people are back with you, then the more you're going to be relevant to the algorithm inside that group. And so more people are actually going to see your posts when you actually have something you need. So that's another tip I wanted to give you, is to make sure that when you're in these groups, don't just be a wallflower, and also don't just post when you need something, because that's really a little bit on the selfish side, right? You want to give more than you take, if you will, in these groups. And that's really just, don't just get out of that mindset of, sometimes I think people they don't even think of the group until they need something. So I want you to get more used to visiting the group and actually being a part of the help. So using your skills to help other people. So, one of the things, so again, just a super quick recap, I want you to make sure you're being social in your own content. And so when people are commenting on your posts or sending you direct messages, you need to make sure that you're responding to as many of those as possible, especially the ones that are relevant. Like if they're asking you a question or just contributing to the the content. You maybe did a live video and they commented on there, especially if it's a replay, make sure you go back and you respond to that person. And then don't just post when you have something to brag about. Make sure that you're more social and so that your posts you're creating more engaging conversation. You're prompting conversation in your posts. So asking questions, sharing that, and showing that you care about your audience. You want to get to know them. So in doing so, you're going to ask questions and then you're going to listen to what they say and you're going to apply it back in your content. And then, of course, in groups, Facebook groups and Facebook communities, I want you to make sure that you're contributing other than just posting when you need something or posting when you want to brag about something. So how do you do this? I want you to set yourself up for success. So here's a couple ways that I want you to think about, or a couple things I want you to think about to set yourself up for success. This should be a part of your daily routine. So you need to do what I like to call social media drive-bys. So obviously we get notifications in our social media apps, especially if we have them turned on, but sometimes notifications can get lost in the shuffle. I hate to tell you this, but if you have a lot of pages that you manage or you're in a lot of groups, Facebook is not going to send you a notification for every little thing that happens. In fact, they actually kind of have their own the notifications themselves have their own little algorithm. Isn't that crazy? When you manage all these pages, or if you have all these things that you're involved in, they're just not going to send you a notification for absolutely every little thing, possibly, especially if you're getting pinged a lot, because they just can't. They know that you can't handle it. So sometimes we have to do what I call a social media drive-by. We need to log into our app, get in our actual page natively, and look at those notifications and that notification inbox directly in the page, each page individually, if you have more than one page that you manage. And then, of course, in the groups, the same way. I want you to get in the groups and look at those notifications and just go back even to one of your more recent posts and just make sure you've taken care of everything. So quick little social media drive-by. You should do what I call a deep drive-by, which is like what I'm saying right now. You go in and you actually get in there and look at your DMs, look at, just check it all yourself manually, if you will. Do that at least twice a week, like that manual way. But the other thing I want you to do is at least twice a day, sometime in the early part of the day, and then another time in the later part of the day, whatever works for your schedule. Spend at least 15 minutes, making sure you're taking the time to respond to any comments, to respond to any direct messages that have been happening on your content for sure. So again, at least 15 minutes in the morning and in the afternoon or in the evening, whatever works for you, to make sure that you're responding at a good time. If that sounds like too much time for you, then we need to shift some priorities, because if people are commenting on your stuff and they're sending you direct messages and you can't spend 30 minutes a day responding to them, I mean, this is kind of like your customer support, then we got to maybe shift some priorities around. Maybe you need a little bit of help. Hire a VA to help you do some other things so that you can be more engaged in your communities and in your content. And then another thing I'll say is the other way that you can set yourself up for success, especially when it comes to groups, because I want you, when I talk about that 15 minutes, if you're not getting a lot of engagement on your posts, maybe you're still fairly new to the whole social media game, maybe you're still growing your engagement, then in that 15-minute window, then use that same window to peruse your groups that you're in and look for content that you can help with. I would love for you to actually spend more isolated time in the group. So I'd like to see you do 15 minutes in the morning for your own social media, and then another 10 to 15 minutes in a group per day, and look at whatever you can. How can you contribute to the conversation? How can you find questions that you can answer, but also use that time to see what other people are asking in your communities and be thinking of ways you can help. And then, of course, another 15 minutes in the latter part of the day, checking your own engagement again, once again. Now, If this sounds like a lot, then maybe we need to think about your commitments. Maybe we need to think about your support. Maybe you need to get some people, on your team to help you so that you can stay engaged in these communities. But the other thing I'll say is, if the group thing sounds overwhelming, then maybe you're in too many groups. So I want you to really think about the groups that you're involved in. So you can have some groups where you're just a lurker because you're just there because you like it. Maybe it's like a fashion group, or a buying and selling group. I don't know what it is, but maybe that's a group where you're not necessarily doing any posting. You're just there for information or because it's just fun for you to peruse. Then make sure that the groups, the learning communities you're in and the others that you're in where you are seeking help and advice from the community and that you should be contributing to as well. Let's make sure we're not in too many of those. If it feels like you can't handle helping other people in these groups, then that means you're overcommitted. And so I want you to really think about which groups are going to be the most valuable for you to spend your time in, not only for yourself, but also how can you contribute to the conversation? Because again, it's just not fair for you to be in those groups and just always be, I'm only going to post when I need something. And then the community shows up for you. Well, you need to make sure that you show up for them too. These groups are for you to be in, and you should, if they scratch your back, you should scratch theirs too. And so always be looking for opportunities where you can be helping other people as well. The more you show up for the community, the more they're going to show up for you for sure. So that's what I got for you guys today. So these are just a few of the tips about how you can ensure that you're being social when you're using social media. It's not just about blasting all of the stuff that we want to blast out there. You need to also be part of the conversation, not only in your own content, but also on other people's content, whether it be on their posts or in groups for sure. So social media is intended to be social for sure. And I promise you that it will help you in the long run. So that's what I got for you guys today. I hope it was helpful. And again, always make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss any bonus episodes or any episodes as they get released. And thanks for being here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. So have an awesome day.